Welcome back to the Shabbos Treasures series. I'm Gila Ross, host of the Power Up podcast, and I'm here together with my co-host,
Rabbi Samuel Ross, and we are delighted to be able to share a weekly idea that you can take into your Shabbos and upgrade and beautify immediately. Enjoy. The question was, this was the question. Good, you want to tell them?
Let's say sometimes it happens that Saturday night is Pesach, first night of Pesach, and you want to have a nap, maybe even want the kids to have a nap, so like no one's falling apart when it comes to Seder night. Are you allowed to do that on Shabbat? Could there possibly be a problem with doing that on Shabbat?
Yeah, I read the question yesterday, and in my head I was like, well, yes, I know that you're not allowed to prepare for after Shabbat during Shabbat. Okay, so you can't start laying the Seder table, but you can go for a sleep because you could go for a sleep on Shabbat anyway, like a Shabbos Shluff. So in my head, as long as it was kind of you were just going for a sleep, they put them kids for a sleep for them to have a relax, as opposed to saying, well, they must go to sleep now so that they can stay up late for Seder. Then I suppose for me, it's the way you context it.
Okay, so good. So again, we'll see in a few minutes once we give the principles. Again, this may well be the answer.
But we keep them in suspense.
We're going to keep you in suspense, Richard. I'm going to throw this back to you.
Maybe right. We don't know.
Any of you are welcome to reply to this. Would there be any circumstances that you or your kids could not go to sleep under those circumstances if they were trying to prepare for Seder night?
Is it that you can go to sleep, but as long as you're not asleep for the end of Shabbos going into Yom Tov?
So your concern, again, we will see in a few minutes. Gila wants to keep you in suspense. I think all those hours in the car today has led us to that. But Maddie perhaps wants to see a distinction as the end of Shabbos or not quite the end of Shabbos. Okay, good. We'll see. Again, Andrew, would there be any circumstances other than possibly, right at the end of Shabbos that might be a problem?
And obviously we're talking from a halachic point of view, not from a practical perspective of getting kids to agree to nap, which is a whole nother.
Oh, I thought that was easy.
Of course, and a whole nother.
Yeah.
The mitzvah is obviously to understand the story of the Seder night, which is why there's lots of people that read it in the native language, which is why obviously an element of the Seder or a lot of the first part of the Seder can be read in English, apart from certain brothers, because the mitzvah is to understand the Seder night. So therefore, by allowing the kids to have a sleep, you are ensuring that the mitzvah of listening to the story of coming out of Egypt will actually happen.
So Andrew, that's very interesting. And Guy, yesterday's session, tried to say something similar. Again, we'll see in a few minutes. His theory was that if you're doing it from one mitzvah to another, it might be okay. So far, we've said three things. We've said that maybe it's not a big deal because maybe I'm doing it on a regular Shabbos. We've seen that maybe at the end of Shabbos, it could be different. And we've seen that maybe to go from one mitzvah to another could be different. Give us about 15 minutes and we'll see which one of those three apply or don't apply.
What does the winner get?
A good night from us.
Nothing.
Oh. They're thinking a good night from us. Okay, so before we try and get towards the answer, we're going to do this a little bit differently tonight. We're going to give you the principle and the couple of exceptions, and then we're going to rattle off a few examples, depending on how much time we have, instead of giving examples before. This is the principle. Maddie actually mentioned this 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't remember the context. There is something called hachana, preparation. So we're not allowed to prepare on Shabbos for after Shabbos. Okay, we'll see the exceptions in a minute or two. But the basic principle is that it's a rabbinic ordinance, and it takes away from the spirit of Shabbos if you're preparing on Shabbos for after Shabbos. It's something that we don't do. Okay? That's the concept. So there are going to be maybe 3 exceptions to that rule.
What are they?
That is a very good question. So these are the 3 exceptions. The first one I think Richard's touched on, which is when it's not self-evident why you're doing it. Very similar to what we discussed last week. Maddie, if you remember, we discussed walking. You're walking, an hour before the end of Shabbos to get to the sales. As long as it's not self-evident, Stephen's going to come 20 minutes after Shabbos with his credit card to pay for whatever damage you've done. That's fine, as long as you don't tell anybody why you're doing it. It's not necessarily self-evident. You could be going for a walk. You could be going to the sales, so it's the same thing here. Richard's example, as long as it's not self-evident, it's okay. Now, I asked you, when would it not be okay in that case? Well, if you were to tell your kids, go to sleep because you need to be up for tonight, that wouldn't help you. So you may be allowed internally to know why you're doing what you're doing. And maybe you could even discuss it before Shabbos, but to discuss it on Shabbos, that would be an issue. Because then it's self-evident. You're saying, we are going to sleep now in order to be up tonight. That you can't do. But you could just say, we need to be fresh. We need to have a good rest. It's Shabbos or something like that. People will understand why you're doing what you're doing as long as you don't say it. So that's the first one. It can't be self-evident. The second one is a little bit more complicated, but it's a significant one. It's just as significant as the first one. I'm going to rephrase it a little bit differently to how I phrased it yesterday, and then Gila will give you a few examples. When it's something that's small, that's done out of habit, it's okay. Okay, I say again. When it's a non-strenuous, small activity that's done routinely out of habit. Let me give you an example. When you finish with your butter that you've eaten at, your kiddush to put on your challah roll, you could put that back in the fridge. But you're preparing for after Shabbos for it to be fresh. Why is that okay? Because it's non-strenuous. It's not like, you're schlepping a chair across the garden. And it's part of habit. Without even thinking, you pick it up and you put it back in your fridge. So even though it's true you're preparing, but it's nothing to do with preparation. I'm doing it because it's my habit and it's something that's non-strenuous. So those are the two things. It has to be non-strenuous and out of habit. The example we're using is putting something back in the fridge.
Something that you kind of do like unconsciously. Like, for example, when you come home and you hang your coat up, right? Like it's something that you just, you're not really thinking, as opposed to, let's say, when you decide like supper's over and you want to clean up and you have to take all the dishes and you have to wash them up and you have to put them up away and you have to load the dishwasher. That's something that you have to consciously think about. So we're talking about things that are like subconscious, like you don't really think
twice about them. But there has to be an addition to that it's not a tremendous amount of work. Let me give an example where it would be a tremendous amount of work. Where let's say you would, you would start loading your dishwasher and putting it in and scraping off the food to make it get rid of the grease. That's a tremendous amount of work, even if it's routine.
And it's also not subconscious.
Right, so it's not subconscious, but even if it were, that's too much work involved.
It's the kind of thing where you might think back 10 seconds later and be like, did I put the butter back in the fridge? You've done it, but you don't even remember doing it.
100%.
Yeah.
You nailed it there. Yeah.
It's something small. It's something you haven't even thought about.
Yeah, hanging the key up when you get home and hanging it up on the thing, that type of thing.
And then there'll be a third exception to the rule, which is if it's useful for Shabbos now. So let me give you an example. Let's say, your kids have trashed the place. It's all messy. So now you want to clean up, but you're not allowed to prepare for Shabbos, for after Shabbos. You can't clean. Let's
ask them. Do you think we can clean?
Yeah, because then it's clean for Shabbos.
So Richard's giving the right answer. He's saying if your personality type is generally wants it clean for Shabbos, or it could be, then that's okay. But if you don't care less during the week you wouldn't clean and you're not going to be in that room, then it's an issue.
Or another example is if let's say you're about to leave the house until after Shabbos, right? Let's say you're going to visit someone and your kids have made a mess. Can you clean up and then leave the house? Like you're not going to be in the house again on Shabbos.
Right.
So then you wouldn't be allowed to because you're not actually getting any benefit from Shabbos. But in a case, like, for example, where it's in the living room or in the room that you're sitting in, it usually bothers you and you enjoy having a nice clean room. So as Richard said, you can definitely clean it up.
Right. So before, again, Gil will give a couple of examples. But again, hachana preparation is preparing for after Shabbos, no good. We found 3 times it's okay. If either it's not self-evident why you're doing it, it's done, it's a small thing that's done out of habit. You don't even realize that you've done it. Richard's example, and you've got the example of the butter. And then the third one is where it's useful for Shabbos itself.
Should we tell them the fourth one?
If you want. There's a fourth one? Yes.
Well, perhaps.
Yes.
If there's a significant loss, to avoid a significant loss when it involves like a small labor activity. So for example, if let's say you left, like a book in the garden, right? A book that you value in the garden and it's starting to rain. You could bring it in because you don't want the book to get ruined, and it's not a big deal. It's not like a significant act of labor to get up and bring it in.
But what about 40 chairs that have been left outside? If you don't need it for Shabbos, that could be a problem. So it has to be a small loss. But Maddie, in terms of your distinction about before Shabbos, after Shabbos, that wouldn't make it forbidden. Like, it doesn't make any difference when you go to sleep. These are the only 3 or 4 exceptions. It's not self-evident, it's done routinely, or it's useful for Shabbos. And again, Andrew, it doesn't help us if we're going from one mitzvah to another mitzvah. Alas.
Does that not even if, for example, one was a biblical and one was a rabbinical?
It won't make any difference.
Okay.
It's, if we've got our mitzvah right now, which is Shabbos, and it's the great Shabbos, so unfortunately it won't help us. But those are the 3 exceptions, which in many occasions can get you out of it. It's not necessarily self-evident. It's done out of habit. It's a small thing. I'm not thinking about it, or if it's useful for Shabbos, plus the significant loss when it's a minor activity.
Should we test them now?
Or we can test each other. But yeah, okay, we'll test you. Or you can test us.
I prefer testing them.
Fine, fair enough. Let's go.
All right. Question number 1 for you. Can I wash the dishes on Shabbat?
Oh, good one for you, Stephen.
You'll be
Maggie needs to put her feet up. And now we're not talking about Friday night. Friday night, you're going to have guest Shabbos lunch. Shabbos lunch, got no more guests, no more use for it. And Maggie wants to put her feet up.
No, you can't.
Exactly. You can't. Is there any way to deal with it on Shabbos?
With the deep grease from the chillent.
You can rinse it with cold water, but you can't use like bubbles or hot water.
So the way that we try to do, I don't know what Andrew is going to say. Andrew, you're going to say something?
I was going to say, isn't that where this is the rule with the cleaner or something that could come in and
right, so that's the cleaner. Good if you got the cleaner, but let's say you're by yourself. So this is the way to deal with it, because it's very hard to justify being able to do too much with it. This is the way that people try and deal with it when possible. You leave it in the sink, and then when people naturally wash their hands with cold water, the grease will come off. Because
They get rinsed. They get rinsed. While you're doing
Again, I hear what Maddie's saying, but that's probably the safest way. Okay, so that Stephen, that's your get out. You can still clean up, put it in the sink, and then when the girls come to wash their hands over the afternoon, the grease will come off. That comes Saturday night, and you want to clean the house for Maddie, you'll be able to even have greaseless, chillinless grease. What am I looking for? No grease from your plate, you'll be able to wash it up. Okay.
Yeah, but you can't load. You can't.
Yeah, you can put that stuff in.
Yeah, but you can't load it. Yeah.
So the next one is dishwasher. Okay, they're asking good. Dishwasher.
Yes. Can I load the dishwasher?
Yes.
You can load it, but you can't
organize
it.
Right. So you can put the dishes in the dishwasher, but you can't make it ready to be things. So for example, you can, if let's say the dishes are bothering you, they're on the counter or they're taking up space or whatever, you can take them, you can put them in the dishwasher, and you can even do what Samuel said was like, if you put them in the sink and then wait a little bit till people wash their hands, and then you need the sink for something else, you can put them in the dishwasher, but you can't load it ready to be switched on. That's the word that I was saying.
Okay.
Any questions so far, or are you ready for the next question?
No, they're ready. They're ready.
Can I wipe my tabletop clean on Shabbos?
Yes.
So why would you say yes, Richard?
And when yes?
But certainly, without doubt, Friday night, yes, definitely, because you'll need it on Shabbos day.
Right.
Can you wipe it down? I mean, after lunch, potentially yes, because you might need it for Seder.
Okay, if you need it for the third Seder, what about after the third?
After Seder, maybe not. I don't know. I still think yes, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm less convinced about after Seder.
So here's the thing. It depends, right? Because usually you wouldn't be able to, unless there's two things. Unless either number one, you need it for later on, Or number two, it's bothering you, right? Like if you're sitting in that room and this dirty, grimy table is bothering you, and you know you're gonna clean the table and you're gonna enjoy sitting in a room where it's clean, or you're gonna enjoy coming in and out of a room that's clean, then yes, you would be allowed to. But if neither of those two, if you're not gonna need it, or it's not going to add, you know, it's not gonna bother you, you're not gonna notice it, whatever, then you wouldn't be allowed to do it.
I think like a distinction that they often make is it depends when. Like, let's say it's after Shabbos lunch, so then you can wash it down, you know, you got the whole day. But if it's after the third meal and it's half an hour at the end of Shabbos, that's hardest to justify. Unless maybe you're going to use that room or you're a cleanliness freak.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
We can sit read at the table.
Yeah.
If you had a plastic cloth on the table, then you can take the plastic cloth off the table without washing it down. Therefore, you remove the need to wash it down, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
A plastic tablecloth. You could take a plastic tablecloth off the table.
You can take a plastic tablecloth off, couldn't you? Yeah. Which therefore would remove the need for washing it down.
Right. Yeah, the only thing is, it depends how much effort's going to go into that. Because if you're going to have to pile up all the plates, like if everything's disposable and you're just rolling up and throwing it out, then yes. But if you're going to have to pile up all the plates and do all that, then, and it's just before the end of Shabbos, then that would be harder to justify, because then you're doing quite a lot of effort for something that you're not going to really get benefit on Shabbos.
Yeah. Again, that's the principle. As long as I could gain something on Shabbos, or it's going to bother me or something like that, then it might be okay.
What about making beds? Can I make them in the morning? This is a hard question to answer.
I think no.
Okay. Anyone wants to agree or disagree with Maddie?
Does it depend on whether or not, if it's not made, it's going to bother you?
It depends. Yeah.
I think it depends whether you're Maddie or whether you're Richard.
We're not making any judgment.
Or whether you're me or Gilla. I just think, I think it depends on the person. I can't bear it.
I don't make the bed any day.
No, I make it.
I don't make it any day.
Exactly. So, but I think that's a great example. If you don't make it on a Tuesday, then you couldn't make it on a Shabbos. But if it's something that really bothers you, or that's, you know, whatever it is, it's part of making it nice for Shabbos, then, you know,
and
absolutely.
Richard, again, that comes back to like that. Usually the people where it bothers, they're in the habit subconsciously of every morning they make the bed.
Yeah, get out of bed, they pull
you wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
But if you're someone who doesn't, and they just like straighten it out before they get into bed at night, then you wouldn't be able to. Okay, next question.
This is a good one. What about, you've had your Shabbos morning in shul, and now you're going to put away your Seder on a shelf, which is going to get used next Shabbos. Da, 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 da. Stop them!
Are you advocating?
Well, yes, because you do put the Sidurim away in shul.
So you're suggesting it's part of that it's routine. It's not a lot of work. Excellent, Andrew.
Yeah.
You're saying practically we do, so they must be allowed, right?
What about if you're walking around and you see 3 dozen Sidurim left flying around? Would you say the same thing?
Well, yes, because certainly in the lead shuls they do they do put the Sidurim away.
That's much harder. That's hard, because if it's 3 or 4 dozen books lying around, that's hard. If it's one.
Then you could argue that certainly the shuls and leads, all the chumashes are put away straight after the Haftorah is read.
Okay, so again, maybe it's because of cleanliness or some respect or something like that. So maybe the Sidurim is not a good example. Maybe that's respect. But let's say
a good example is you know how when they read the Torah, they have it ready for the parasha. So are you allowed to roll it to the next week's parasha?
Yes.
That's preparation.
Yes, they do. Well,
you can only do it if you're going to read from a Shabbos Mincha. You're saying yes because they read a Shabbos Mincha. But Andrew, let's go back to my example. So again, I hear you if it's 2 dozen or 3 dozen Sidurim. Maybe it's because of respect, because of cleanliness, whatever it is. But let's say you're in one of these shuls. Let's say you're in the Eitz Chaim Beis Medrash, and there's 30 or 40 books left lying around, which is nothing to do with respect. They're just, people have been learning them. You want to clean up. I don't think that's so simple. I think in contrast to putting one book away, that you're using, I think that's a different situation. I think that's not just a question of routinely putting something away. You're preparing for after Shabbos.
Or also during the day in shul, the reason why they can put the sperm away is because the likelihood is they're going to be needed again later on Shabbat for mincha or whatever. So that's why they would be able to do it.
Okay, we've got maybe a couple more examples.
Yes, where are we up to?
Couple more examples. Let's look at, this is a good one. Can you go to half an hour before the end of Shabbos, go to your fridge and take out the grape juice for Havdalah and leave it lying around? No, I'm with Richard. No, that's a problem. No. Clearly preparing for afterwards.
Can I put the challah in the freezer on Shabbat?
No, because you're preparing for because again you can't freeze anything until after Shabbos, can you?
Aren't you starting the motor as well?
I'm sorry, Stephen?
Aren't you starting the motor as well once you open the freezer?
Again, we're going to have to assume that the motor issue has been dealt with. You've gone and got yourself the federation thing that deals with the motor. Let's just assume for argument's sake the motor is dealt with, you can use a freezer. So I think we're going to have the same thing, the example we had with Richard before about the fridge, that I'm routinely, it's a little bit of effort. I'm not even thinking about it. I want to save it that's going to be fresh for next week. I'm not doing it for preparation. I want to maintain the food. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm putting it away.
To prevent a loss. Yeah.
But aren't you changing the nature of that food from being unfrozen to frozen? So therefore, you're creating something.
That's a very good question. Next week, that's a very good question. Next week, we're going to do something called molad, which is to make a new entity. We'll see then. Again, in this case, it will be okay, but we'll see then when things in terms of changing of entity are or not an issue. Okay, one or two quick more examples. This is a good one. What about you're going for a walk half an hour before the end of Shabbos, the city with an Erev, so manage to Benoit leads, and you lock your front door with a key. Can you take your key with you? You're not going to be using it to after Shabbos.
No, because you're still carrying unless there's an Erev.
There's an Erev. So we're talking about within the Erev. Why is it not preparation for after Shabbos? Why should it be?
Potentially, if you were to leave your key somewhere and not carry it with you, potentially someone could get your key, get into your house, and there could be a significant loss. Therefore, you can take it.
Right. So you're going to maybe rely on significant loss in that way, whether it is actually now a loss, or perhaps you could say it's for a Shabbos need right now of my mind. Or I think it's more simple than that. You could say that it's something I don't even think about. It's not a tremendous amount of work. I'm just putting it in my pocket without thinking about it. It's the same as putting the cheese back in the fridge, the tuna dip back in the fridge. I think you can even stretch to things like the key. Okay, let's go back to our original question. What was our original question? It's been a long day.
I have no idea. Oh, Pesach. I think we answered it, but let's. Should we test your Ross? Because we forgot that we answered it. I'm pretty sure we answered it. Are you allowed to sleep on Shabbat in preparation for the Seder night and Pesach?
Yes, because you do it without thinking about it.
Great.
It's a natural thing to do on Shabbos.
Yes, great. When couldn't you? Under what circumstances would it be a problem?
So that would apply to someone who automatically sleeps on Shabbos afternoon. May not apply to kids, though.
Yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, and even if someone didn't normally go to sleep, the fact that they could in theory go to sleep and they could in theory be sleeping is okay. In all seriousness, because as long as it's not necessarily self-evident against them, it's not self-evident against them. It's the same as walking to the shop. Unless it's 100% self-evident, you're okay. So
when couldn't you?
They could go to sleep as much as they don't.
Them. So sorry? you wouldn't be allowed to instruct your children. Please go to sleep so that you will be able to do away.
Brilliant,
excellent. Yeah, something like that is when we get into difficulties.
Yeah.
If your kids go to sleep on demand, then you're doing something right, and I want to know what.
So do I. Okay, guys.
That's a great question beyond the scope of the Shabbat. Thank you very much, everyone.
Can I just ask you one quick question? Yeah. Can you take your rubbish out on Shabbos? You know, like if your bin's overflowing in the kitchen, can you take it out?
Or the plastic cloth that you've taken off the table.
Yeah, can you put that out into the bin?
It's a good question. So again, we're not preparing for
obviously assuming that there's an era, right? Which in Manchester, but I know we have people listening to it. But Ross,
well, even if there's not an eruv, but the bin's within the vicinity of your land, surely.
If it is, right, like some places, for example, Israel, there's usually eruv there as well. Yes, you're 100% right. As long as the bin is within the eruv that's your whatever. Yes, exactly, Richard.
So Maddie, let me ask you a question. Apart from any other issue, why isn't it muksa? We're going to do a revision of what we did 3 weeks ago. Why wouldn't it be muksa, the garbage?
Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, it's muksa. It's set aside. It's no use for me on Shabbos. The truth is we never cover this in our muksa class, but I'm using this as an opportunity. Why do a bit of revision? Why is it not muksa?
I think this is the group I missed.
Oh, you missed one on muksa. So basically, the reason it won't be muksa is because there's always going to be food inside a bin. The moment you got food, it will make it okay, because you're going to have, even if it was potato peels or something like that, then it's even an animal can eat it. So I mean, again, if you need to get rid of something because it's disgusting or whatever. So when we did muksa, we learned that when something is disgusting and it bothers you, so you're allowed to take it out. Even if it were muksa, you could take it out.
So the bin it comes under the same as cleaning up the table, putting the toys away. If it doesn't bother you, if you ordinarily would leave the bin lying around until whatever you went around and got it, then you leave it. But if it's bothering you that it's sitting in the kitchen, in the middle of the kitchen, then yes, you can take it out because you're going to get benefit.
So what happens if then a child knocks a toy that turns on? It's like beeping away. It's going to beep for the rest of Shabbos.
You kick it out the door.
You're allowed to turn it off.
So again, we saw it in I think it was the 3rd or 4th week that you could hint to a non-Jew to sound them off. It's an annoying noise.
But there's no non-Jew around, and it's just can you knock it out into the garden or? So
we saw by muksa again, you can't pull something out of electricity, but you could use your foot or something, or you could smother it or something like that. Any of those types of solutions. Right. Okay, the great questions. Okay, guys, have a great one.
Thank you for taking the time to listen. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can get in touch with me. I'm on Instagram at It's Gila Ross. And please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.